Imagine spending 10 years building a business, starting small, then rising so fast it feels like the only direction is up. Then, at your highest, everything comes crashing down. That's what happened to married couple Brian Smith and Jackie Cuscuna of Brooklyn, New York, and their ice cream company, Hills Creamery. At its height in 2019, Hills was bringing in over $10 million a year in sales and was valued at $40 million. It was praised by celebrities like Oprah Winfrey and Steven Spielberg. Then, in March of 2020, Brian and Jackie filed for bankruptcy.
We filed Chapter 11 because there wasn't really any other option at that point. There was no way to shrink our way or contract our way out of this problem.
But even after their precipitous rise and fall, Brian and Jackie decided to try again.
We weren't ready to just walk away from the ice cream world.
Here's how Brian Smith and Jackie Cuscuna built and lost a $40 million ice cream business, and how they started over. Before they became professional ice cream makers, Jackie was a high school teacher and Brian was a screenwriter. But Brian had another passion, making ice cream.
The real impetus was just that joy that it brings when you make ice cream and you share it with people.
In 2010, Brian decided to make a major career shift and start an ice cream shop.
This idea of creating an ice cream shop that didn't exist at the time in our neighborhood was really very appealing and exciting for me, and I think that's what led me to encourage Brian to continue working towards creating this shop.
Brian and Jackie named their new business Hills, after a line from Walt Whitman's poem, Crossing Brooklyn Ferry. Brian began with a simple ice cream cart in Brooklyn's Prospect Park in the summer of 2010. But he wasn't selling standard ice cream flavors like chocolate and vanilla. His recipes incorporated foods like cookies, breakfast cereals, even potato chips.
It was like really trying to make something with high quality, but something that would speak to the 7-year-old inside of the 47-year-old.
The following year, Brian and Jackie poured their life savings, $225,000, into opening Hills' first brick-and-mortar shop in Brooklyn.
There were lines that went down the street the entire summer. We were just trying to keep up with ice cream production. Actually had to close after the first 4 days because we ran out of ice cream.
The shop featured ice cream flavors with quirky names like Salted Cracked Caramel, The Munchies, and Oh Captain My Captain. In 2014, Brian and Jackie opened a larger second shop in Brooklyn with a 2,000 square foot kitchen for ice cream production.
It allowed us to start shipping the ice cream across the country. That was really the thing that sort of took it from normal growth patterns that we were experiencing by adding a shop every year or two to explosive growth.
The catalyst for that growth was an online order from Bob Iger, CEO of Disney.
And so we sent him a copy of our cookbook, which had just come out, and we sent him our ice cream. And maybe 4 or 5 days after he got his ice cream, he sent me an email saying, "Hi, I'm Bob Iger. If there's anything at all I can do to help, let me know." Maybe Hills at Disney? Bob. I mean, we just couldn't believe it for the longest time.
Iger became a mentor to Brian and Jackie, and soon they were working on plans to build a small shop at Disney World. But in order to keep up with the growing popularity of their brand, they would need more capital, quickly. They decided to seek out venture capital funding, raising $4 million for Hills in their 2015 seed round. Over the next 4 years, they would raise more than $19 million. At the same time, their total number of shops grew to 13, including 1 in Los Angeles and 2 in Florida. They also leased a 15,000 square foot factory in Brooklyn for $25,000 a month to meet production demand.
It was overwhelming, it was exhilarating, but it was really fulfilling, creatively.
But the cracks in Hills were beginning to show. Its shops in LA and Aventura, Florida were underperforming, and there was a general lack of knowledge on Hills' board of directors about the food and beverage industry. But the biggest problem that Brian and Jackie faced was the factory they opened in 2018.
The estimates that we came up with were we needed to have 15 shops open in order to have that factory work from an overhead point of view.
Brian and Jackie budgeted $4 million to secure and build out a huge factory space in Brooklyn's Red Hook neighborhood, but the project ended up costing $6.7 million.
That's a mistake and that's a problem, but that's survivable. The problem that wasn't is the overhead to run the factory ended up really being about 25 to 30 shops. We didn't have enough money to magically grow 15 more shops. There was no way to shrink our way or contract our way out of this problem once we built it.
In 2017, the year before the factory opened, Ample Hills was operating at a loss of $1.6 million. But after the factory opened, losses skyrocketed to nearly $7 million by 2019. In July of that year, Ample Hills financial director told Brian and Jackie they didn't have enough money to make it through the winter.
And that was a big what? Oh, are you kidding me? Like, I don't understand that. We immediately started calling our investors and said, we need to raise some more money. And their, answer was no. I mean, we've raised enough money.
Brian and Jackie scrambled to cut costs, decreasing salaries, including their own, and letting go of staff. But by January 2020, it became clear that the only feasible option was to file for bankruptcy.
We wanted to file for Chapter 11 to find somebody that could come in and buy the company and that we could work with and guide through a restructuring process.
Eventually, one buyer stepped forward. Schmidt Industries, a machine parts company based out of Portland, Oregon, purchased Ample Hills for $1 million.
We talked about roles for Jackie and I, but they were pretty adamant that they felt like we were expendable, that we were not necessary players, and said so in very specific words.
That year, Brian and Jackie also declared personal bankruptcy and left the company they had spent 10 years building.
It was a really hard time. I think through it all, though, we were never angry at each other.
I mostly felt like I had let her down because I was the CEO. I mean, we made decisions together, but I made the big ones about the factory and all those things.
But even after the pain of losing their business, Brian continued making ice cream.
The pandemic sort of gave me this opportunity in a weird way to sit there at home and actually combine milk and cream and sugar and flavors and make ice cream again. And I found that I still really loved it and that I could do it well.
Jackie started taking a business course through the Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce, and she made an important connection there.
It was about business owners who needed to pivot and do something different. And it was through them that I ended up being introduced to a business advisor who ultimately became our investor.
That investor, Norm Brodsky, had built and lost his own business before bouncing back. He invested $450,000 toward Brian and Jackie's new ice cream shop, The Social, which they opened in July 2021.
I felt like by the time we opened The Social, that we had a pretty good handle on what it was that needed to be done. I felt like we were in a much more experienced place to open this new business than we were in the beginning with the old business.
Instead of focusing on brand growth, Brian and Jackie focused on The Social's profitability. Brodsky helped them bring on two other investors who had experience in the food and beverage industry. And the story didn't end there. Near the end of 2022, Brian and Jackie discovered that Schmidt Industries was planning to liquidate Ample Hills.
We talked about this with our investors, and they apparently had already been in some kind of conversation with the CEO of Schmidt Industries.
Their investors offered Schmidt $150,000 to buy back Ample Hills. In May 2023, the bid was accepted.
Yes.
I read the email to you and I was like, wait, what? I was just like, I don't know, almost started crying, jumping up and down. It was like, it was crazy.
In June 2023, Ample Hills officially reopened under its original ownership. In addition to The Social, Brian and Jackie now run 4 Ample Hills scoop shops and their new, smaller production facility. Brian says that this past July, National Ice Cream Month, they brought in between $300,000 and $400,000 across their 5 shops.
In terms of growth, I mean, we're going to approach it very slowly. It's a very small Ample Hills now compared to what it was even a year ago under Schmidt, and certainly small compared to what it was when we were operating it a few years ago.
Based on their experience, Brian and Jackie advise new business owners to pursue their visions with passion, but also with pragmatism.
You're creating a business, you're not making a painting. You're creating a business that therefore has to feed other people, and other people have to like and enjoy it.
And I would also say you should talk to people in similar businesses who you admire. People are always willing to offer time and help, if you ask, and I think it's a part of learning and growing.
Failure is not something to be ashamed of. I mean, businesses fail left and right, people fail left and right, and then what you have to be ashamed of is not trying again or not learning anything from the failures that you're making and going out there and going for it again.